This is Caffeinated Risk, the monthly podcast for security professionals by security professionals, focused on the principles of enterprise security risk management, exploring technology and business management issues and how they relate to information security risk. Once a month, two self-proclaimed grumpy security guys bring you analysis, insights, and interviews with leading security risk professionals to learn how they work through a project, a program, or their careers using a risk-based approach to security. Now here are your hosts, Tim McCreet and Doug Leese.
How many think they are a special snowflake?
And yeah, there's the difference, right? So, all right, so now that we're officially recording, I'll do this and then we'll get right back into it. So.
All right, great.
So hello, everybody, and thanks for listening to our latest podcast of Caffeinated Risk. On the show for this month, Larry Whiteside. Larry, welcome to Caffeinated Risk. Thanks for coming on board. I know you are busy and you're in the middle of going to Vegas Black Hat, if I remember correctly. So welcome to the show, and thanks for taking time out from the hot Vegas sun to chat with us on Caffeinated Risk.
No, I appreciate it. I love your platform, so I like having these dialogues.
No, this is terrific. So while we're on the whole topic of Black Hat, you know, when as we were talking before, that it doesn't seem to be the same show it was a few years ago, and that we're seeing some changes. I'm just curious. You talked a little bit about where the money meets the business, or where the money meets the profession. Can you kind of elaborate on that? Because I thought it was a really cool point that you brought forward, but I wanted the audience to hear it too. So.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? So as operators, we tend to focus on capability. We tend to focus on, okay, let's look at this tool. How is it going to help me solve a problem? And that's great, right? And then at the executive level, we're always like, okay, is the company going to be viable 2 or 3 years from now, right? So sometimes we try not to start ones that are too early, right? And so we're always thinking through that. But in conversations that I've had, and every time I go to a conference, I try and speak with both sides of the coin. I want to speak with the technologists who are building these techs, but I also want to speak with the funders who are funding these techs. And I had a conversation this week where I brought up in a little lunch sit down I was having with a couple of funders about a tech that I thought they showed me something, excuse me, that was pretty, intuitive, and I liked the direction it looked like they were going. And they sort of gave me a side eye about the tech, and I was like, wait, what? Like it looked like really viable. I know it's going to solve a problem and it's adding value. And they said, yeah, nobody will fund them. No, nobody's going to touch them, right? And so it made me realize the real direct connection between the capability that a company has, but then on the back end, what does funding look like? Because if they can't get a private equity or VC to fund them appropriately for whatever the reason may be, right, then how viable are they long term? And that's a lot of times not a conversation that we have with them when we are bringing them into the fold, right? Most of the time when we're having a conversation, we're thinking about viability, but we're thinking, are they too early, right? And they're not going to be viable because, that it's 4 guys in a garage. But this is an established company that's had a B round and a C round already. And basically I'm being told that they won't be able to get any more funding because of certain structures that they did and how they've used their money. And so everybody's sort of hands off on them. And I was like, wow. So it sort of opened the door and turned on a light for me as it relates to how I sort of evaluate the companies and the conversations and the level of conversation and the detail of conversation that I need to have on both sides of the equation of understanding these technology companies.
Man, that's just a unique point. So what if, right, you got that one company, that unicorn that's out there, and it's got some amazing tech that is actually practically going to reduce the risks that we're facing. But they can't get, to your point, they can't get to that BC level funding, or they can't get past that. So what now? So now we've got potentially something that could be, a game changer for, let's say, a small, medium business or a section or a sector of our market that's got some real risks that we got to deal with. But that's never going to see the light of day. You know what I mean? Like, it's never going to get out of prod. It's not going to get launched. It's not going to get shrink wrapped. So where do you find that middle ground? What are we missing in this equation?
It's tough, right? And so, first off, sometimes I start to question the true understanding of people who are not operators in what and how a particular tech is going to impact the industry and where we're operators, right? And so we're looking at it through a very specific lens. But then looking at the back end of it, right? Money people are looking at the operating costs, right? What's the overhead to create it? Right? Is it something that can sell and generate revenue based on the overhead of how they've had to build it and so forth? And a lot of times we don't look at or understand that cost. We don't look at how much it costs. So if it costs them $2 to make it, but they can only sell it for $1, right? Like, so for us as an operator, we aren't thinking about the $2 it costs to make it. We're just saying, hey, they're going to sell it for $1 and it's solving a problem I have.
Mm-hmm.
But on the back end, they're saying, listen, it costs them $2 to make it, and we can't reduce the cost enough to make it viable to turn into something to push out to the market. And so there's a fine line here, and there's a real balance that this ecosystem, I think, is just one that a lot of people don't dig into enough.
It's interesting you bring up the numbers, right? Like the $1, $2. Many previous lifetimes ago, I used to have some retail stores, and on a good day, if I bought it for $2, I wanted to sell it for at least $5.99.
Yeah.
Because at some point I got to have it on sale for $4.99 or $3.99.
Right.
And well, I think what a lot of people don't get with the technology is it's not a cell phone or even a laptop or a very quick purchases. It's such a long cycle when you're talking about sometimes they're going to need 18 months to actually figure out if they're going to buy it and put it in and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much overhead that what is the real margin before you make money?
That's the part, right? When you look at some of these companies in the cyberspace, I mean, you can take any company in the tech space, right? Uber's still not out of the red, right? And they're how many billions of dollars, right?
Yeah, fair.
How many years was it before? I don't even know. I think Amazon got out of the red a couple of years ago, right? How old are they? Like, so, the reality is that back end, we tend to not think about how the sausage is made. We're just looking at the sausage.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so it's that how the sausage is made and the cost to make that sausage. And so when these funders are coming in, they're looking at how the sausage is made and then trying to figure out where can they create efficiencies, right? Can they create efficiencies in your sales process? Where can they create efficiencies in your development process? Where can they come in and help you be more efficient in what you're doing? And sometimes when they identify they can't, and they're like, but we don't know that on the other side as operators, and we're looking at this, right? And we're like, man, that sausage looks great. That sausage is going to help me solve a problem. It's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
So is that maybe one of those, maybe this is something, for those who are thinking of building that next sausage or that widget that's going to solve all of the woes of mankind on the cyber side, it's the business concept that I think, having run my own business, Doug's done the same, and, worked in both public, private sectors, worked for profit, not for profit. And to realize the money behind it when you get to certain levels, when you start seeing the P&L, when you start seeing the G&A, when you start seeing what it costs to run the business. Now, even in the new world I'm in, learning how low operating ratio has to get to generate continuous profit for shareholders. I don't know that the average security startup with someone, to your point, a couple of wizards in a garage going, oh, this is awesome, we fixed it. And off they go for that first round. I don't think they have literally a clue what it takes to sustain that 5, 10, 15-year growth. Like, right. How do you get some of these folks to think the business of security, not just I'm an operator, I got this awesome thing, it's going to solve world hunger, I'm going to go make it happen. No, buddy, you got to make a profit on this thing before you get further, right?
They don't think about it.
Back to the four wizards in the garage. And to me, it sort of makes sense to look at an ecosystem that's missing something and go build something to fit into that stack. But I've also sort of seen a real movement away from things that cost money on the surface. How does anybody genuinely compete when you're giving away the OS, you're giving away a lot of the middleware and things like that, and really you're competing for support dollars and things like that.
Right.
But I'm thinking more perversely, because my experience with running things when costs get tight, they start to ask, what don't I have to put into the sausage? And people will still believe it's sausage.
Right.
That's
Yep.
so what's going to start to trickle out of there? And often it's things like, does this actually break the last 3 versions with the new fix? We've got the quality.
Right.
A lot of these things are not necessarily even living up to the hype, and some of it looks like they're literally just collecting things, putting it together and hoping. And then when you see some core component failing, it's like, I wonder if I actually have that in my sausage. What is the IP stack that I have running in this Internet of Things thing I invested in? And,
so I'll tell you the how should I say, the widespread use of open source across the entire cybersecurity ecosystem is absolutely 100% a serious threat to what we do, because so everybody's trying to not recreate the wheel, right? So when you think about it, we've said this for years, right? I don't want to recreate the wheel. If somebody else has already done it, I'll just take what they've had. The problem is attackers have gotten smart. So these threat actors are saying, listen, so rather than me trying to attack this one particular company, right, let me attack this source code library that I know tons of people are using because they're talking about it in the different rooms, and so everybody's using these libraries. So they go attack these libraries, and then they utilize what they find through attacking that library to go and identify, now where can I create this vulnerability? Who all is using this library that I can then specifically target, right? And that's integrated into a lot of the tools that we have. And so for me, that's very concerning. I get it. Writing code is hard, right? Keeping code up to date is hard, right? It's not an easy thing to do. And for people who are building products, they're trying to, again, to our point, right, be more efficient, shave corners, shave time, right? And utilize things that already exist to sort of help them make it better, faster. But at the same time, we've got this component of risk we've got to balance. And it's going to be an interesting next 10 years for people who are coming out and creating these new technologies, these new capabilities. What is their runway to be, a self-sustaining entity versus just building something so that they can slide into a bigger product ecosystem? Right. And which side of that are we going to start to see more? Because if you think about the SOAR platform, where we saw the first 3 SOARs that really came out and hit the market, but in the first 3 years they were gone. They got pulled up into a bigger ecosystem player where somebody said, "Yep, you know what? That is a good idea. I'm gonna bring it in before you guys get too big for us to be able to buy."
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, but at the same time, I know that people like the whole founders feeling.
Yeah, that's true.
I know a number of people who are founders, and they want to start something, and the founders feeling where they've been successful. I know a number of them, and many of them have said, with the product that they built, they knew some other areas of holes similar to that they just didn't integrate into that. So they built that one, and now that one has been acquired, moved on, and they've got their handcuffs off, they're going to build the ancillary component to that they weren't able to fix in that one. And the reality is, again, going to the other side, that back end standpoint, money follows success. And so once these founders have gotten one, right, their ability to get money where they had the steep on-ramp in the beginning because they had never done this before, and now they had one pop, their ability to get money for this next idea is so much easier.
Sure, they got cachet, right? The name, right?
Absolutely. It's just interesting to watch. And I sort of sit in the middle where I'm sort of an operator. I'm working for a startup, and I've got a lot going on around this ecosystem. And having been in it for so long, I'm amazed at where we're at, but I'm also tentatively hesitant on where we're going because I'm just not sure of what's going to happen, right? Because if you think about it, we still need people.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care how automated, I don't care how much machine learning you put into it, I don't care what you do, right, with artificial intelligence, there's still got to be a person that's going to interact at some point. the threat actors are growing at a faster pace, getting smarter at a faster pace. We're not bringing enough people in at the entry level because we've created these barriers to entry. So we're not getting people in fast enough, and we're also not getting in a diverse enough population of people who are going to see something and think outside the box based on their lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I'm constantly pushing about the reason for diversity is you and I can look at the same thing and see it completely differently based on our experience, background, and all these things. And because we haven't built that into our people ecosystem in the runway, we're continuing to lag and fall behind. Because let me tell you, the threat actors are diverse.
Yeah, no
they're
kidding.
extremely diverse.
Yeah.
Because they don't care. They don't have barriers to entry. You want to come in and you want to help solve some of the problems that they're doing, because they are running businesses.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't think they are running actual businesses.
Yep.
Well, Larry, can I pull that thread for a bit? Because I know
Yep.
Doug wants to jump in, but I gotta ask. Look, so I've been chasing this dream for about a decade now. That how do I convince that that kid coming out of university or get them into the program that will get them to their career, to demonstrate that this isn't an industry, it's a profession, and it isn't a job you're going to, it's a career. So
right.
how do, I got to ask, because I've been chasing this forever, and we're trying to do this on the ASIS side of the house. It's how do I draw you into that world? How can I show you that that cybersecurity is an actual profession? And to your point, you know what? Yeah, the machines are going to be there. Eventually, people are going to start. We're going to see more AI and ML expand into our environment. Absolutely, we're going to see the time to see something and react is going to get faster. I'm still going to need a hand on a keyboard. I'm still going to need somebody like a Doug to come back and say, that's legit, chase it. Or, you know what, it's noise, let it go, right? And let's record it, move on, put it in the library. But how do you do it? Like, how do you draw people into that? Or where are you going with the idea of getting that? Instead of, where I am in my career, I'm old and cranky now, so I'm good with it. My mom's proud of what I've done. I don't have to explain it anymore. But my job now is to turn around and lift up. How do I reach back and pull that kid up and get him into this world?
So one, it is I'll say changing the narrative. If you think about the public narrative of what cybersecurity is, every image is somebody in a dark hoodie over a keyboard, right? In a dark environment, right? Yep. And so you have this false idea that this field is this deeply, deeply technical thing. And a lot of people are like, listen, I'm not technical, right? But there's so many other components to this career field.
Mm-hmm.
So that part is one. The other is just exposing people to recognize that this career field exists. A lot of people don't even know it exists.
Yeah.
If you don't have someone in your immediate or even extended circle that can tell you, or that you see that is doing it, right, and that will tell you about it and help you understand what the possibilities are in it, you'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
All of the people that I speak with and I engage with at the entry level, whether they are coming in out of college or they're coming in as a career changer, they found out about it through chance. They heard somebody talk about it.
Yeah.
And then some of them, their parents, right? Their parents are in it. So like my daughter graduated with a cybersecurity degree this year. And my son just went to the Naval Academy. He's going to do cyber operations.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for them, it's they've got me and they know it because of me. But when you look at their colleagues and their friends, and they don't know, they have no idea because there's nobody in their circles. And so it's constantly going into places and being open and communicating and saying, listen, this is the look of a cyber professional. I don't have on a hoodie. I'm not right. I'm not super technical anymore, right? I was at one point, but don't ask me to get on a command line and do a bunch of stuff because it's not right. I can grep, right? But there's not a whole lot of things that I'm going to do at a keyboard any longer, right? And so it's that education and awareness. It's also helping to remove barriers. And this is what I tell a lot of people. I said, listen, even if you aren't going into a college, high school, job fair or whatever, in your company, can you go and help remove some of the barriers that exist that are barriers to entry that sometimes we create, but sometimes we don't, right? Because the reality is this. Every company has salary bands. Every company says, okay, if you make this amount, here are the requirements. And those requirements tend to come from HR. because that's how they've got it built. Well, the reality is in cyber, many of the bands are misaligned because they're aligning it to the rest of the technology fields, but cyber's different. I call us a unicorn, and I say it in jest, but the reality is we are. And so we can't treat the cyber roles the same way we treat IT roles, because an IT admin coming fresh out of college and a cyber security admin or a SOC analyst as an entry-level role are going to be banded differently.
Yep.
And so it's those types of things that they then say, oh, a college degree is required. Well, you just cut out a large percentage of people who could be perfectly good in this, or a certification is required.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the CISSP, it's amazing. And I love ISC Squared as an organization. I do. But the industry glommed onto it, and they stopped paying attention to the fact that, they said, 5 years experience to get the CISSP. Well, you've got an entry-level role that you're searching to fill, but you're asking for a certification that requires 5 years in the field.
Work. Yeah.
Those two things don't align with each other, right? But HR glommed onto the CISSP because it was one of the first certifications out there that sort of gave an overall glimpse into a person's ability to grasp all the concepts. So now we need to relook at that and say, hey, well, maybe a CISSP isn't the certification that we want to say is mandatory for an entry-level role. Maybe we want to do something else. Maybe we want to just have some tests that we can push them through to get an understanding and grasp their technical astuteness, right? Versus saying a certification. Maybe we want to say, hey, in this role, achieving a certain certification within 1 year of employment is something that we want you to do, right?
Yep.
But to say that there are all these barriers, because you also add the more certifications you ask for, certification is money. So for somebody who's unemployed or underemployed, how do they go pay for a certification? So for me, I tell people, if you do nothing, but you are employed, go to your employer and work through that. Go to your employer and figure out how you can help change that narrative so that people who are looking for a job can find jobs that will be better aligned to their actual skills.
I remember when we used to interview people to work on our team, our team leader was very pro get the right fit for the team rather than perfect. And we figured out right away the people that fit on the team, tell us about your home lab.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, if you're not genuinely curious about this and you geek out on your own time, you're probably not the right fit for this crew.
For that particular space, right? Yeah.
But that was also at a time where you could be involved in a project just because you happen to be walking down the hall and they were short a guy. So things have changed.
But they haven't. But they haven't. So I'll challenge that, because I still say you need to have a passion for this.
Yeah.
If you are doing this just for the money, you're in the wrong career field, because you're going to get burnt out very quickly.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
So I say all the time, you should have a passion, and you should be able to follow your passion. I tell people this thing is so broad that there's no way that you can't find something that's your passion. And if you can't, then this isn't the right career field for you.
Well, yeah. And I did want to kind of circle back, because I think that, you're never going to convince me that this isn't the most fun industry way to waste your life away. I mean, I'm way into this, but when I look at what's happened in the industry, when I first started, you were an employee, there was an IT department, and it was kind of a crew. And now I see it a lot more like a collection of contractors that are working, I wouldn't say working to rule, but working to a predefined set of requirements and commitments that a salesman who probably didn't even understand half of what was being talked about sold. And the person that bought it didn't understand the other half. So, there's usually these gaps in the middle. And it's interesting, you say you're at a trade show. I'm sure there are many, many vendors that are providing X as a service kind of thing.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And as we move more to a service economy, what does that actually do to our risk environment when we're going to have people that theoretically only have to care this many dollars worth before there's a problem? So I think that we're losing that accountability. But on the other side, looking at it, I've seen IT departments that look more like retirement homes.
Right. So you're bringing up a good topic, but so this whole as a service market is tiring.
Okay.
However, it's needed.
Okay, so why needed if it's that tiring? Why the needed part? Why do you think it's needed?
Because 75% of global businesses are small to medium-sized businesses who can't afford a full-time security team.
Yeah.
Can't afford a huge IT team.
Okay, fair.
So most of the time they've got, two guys in a bucket, right? Trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, right? Or they've got, and I actually ran into this, where there was a guy I knew that managed the help desk. He got terminated from managing the help desk. And so he couldn't get a job, so he went and started an IT support company. And he began supporting 10 different little small to medium-sized businesses, right? And he was horrible. But to them, he was a rocket scientist because he was able to go in and talk in a language that they didn't understand. So he went in and he was doing it, right? And so he was providing a service to them that they needed, right? That was much needed because they weren't doing it well themselves. So when you think about the cyber component to it, nobody's too small for a cyber breach.
No. Nope.
Right? There's no such thing as well, we're too small for that, right? And so because of that, the thing they are too small to do is to hire a full-time cyber team, right? To have a CISO and to have, they can't. So at some point, the service model had to begin, right? So that these entities could have a way of consuming the resource to do it. The last 3 years, the virtual CISO service has gone through the roof. And it's a combination of regulations are requiring CISOs for some organizations, but then also companies are starting to realize, listen, I can't afford to pay $250,000 or whatever to have one of these people full time. But if I can get them fractionally to help me set a strategy for what I need to do, and then I can have my one security guy or person go execute on the things that this person says I need to do, hey, it's going to at least help me reduce risk. Because as we move forward, right, and we've been watching over the last few years, third-party risk it's a thing.
Yeah, very much. Yep.
Right, and so it doesn't matter how big or small you are. If you're a third party, right, you're third party to T-Mobile, they got a whole third-party questionnaire. You're third party to this entity, they got this whole thing that you got to ask, and you're like, well, this doesn't apply. I don't know how to answer these questions as the third party to them, right? I don't have all of this stuff that they're asking me about. So now you've got to do something, or you're not going to be able to participate in certain ecosystems. Right. We use Target as a great story about it. The HVAC vendor never thought about what they ended up having to deal with. It wasn't something they thought about.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And ultimately, their website was hosted by another third party, right? So there's this whole supply chain component of where we're at and what we have to do is for the SMB, they've got to have a service. Like they're no longer able to sit back and not do anything. And we've got CMMC, right, coming down from the federal government to say, listen, if you are doing any business with the federal government at all, you've got to answer these questions. You've got to go through this, and you've got to tell us how you manage these controls. So it's happening. So they've got to have something to be able to consume it, or literally the biggest part of business that literally is the backbone of most countries is going to disappear.
Yeah, because
and we can't have that.
Because it can't compete in that digitized world because some of these things are just too complicated.
Yeah,
that's right.
But I guess, does that change the risk profile, though? And I mean, that's where I've been struggling for the last few years. As we look more at expanding this whole concept of enterprise security risk management and looking at the business and the risks faced the business, does that change the risk profile if I consider more or adapt more to a service-based model as opposed to either on-prem or my own personal approach to it? But and then how do you manage that collective risk? Because that's what it's become, a collective risk now, right? Like if I'm in a cloud platform, it's a collective risk. So how does that change the risk appetite or the risk profile that now, in the examples we've been talking about, those business owners now, I need that intellectual property to be successful. I'm a small business. I need that. My brain is in that cloud. How does that change the risk profile then for someone to manage or deal with?
Yeah. So the reality is some of the risk Amazon takes on, or your cloud service takes on in their contracts, right? And but that risk is really the uptime risk, right? Because in small business, that 5 nines or whatever you want to call it is really one of their larger risks that they deal with, right? Because they have no idea how to support on-premise IT systems. And so they've got, again, this entity supporting it, and they've got to call. And so if it goes down, they don't know what to do. They got to wait the 3 hours before the person shows up and deal with it, right? So for them, it's largely uptime when it's physical. So they get rid of that risk. And so that when they put it up there, but the reality is it going into the cloud gives them the capability to mitigate risk, because now they've got tools at their leisure, right, to be able to put in front of it. That having it on-prem, the cost to buy a license for that tool, to put it on their server, right, directly, whole different cost model, right? And they still don't know how to run it.
Yeah, fair.
Right?
Yeah.
They still don't know how to operate it. And so now you've got another skill set that you've got to pay for somebody to. I used to do this back in the day, right, as a side gig, right, was do some IT management. But on the security side, they got to install a firewall, right? The sonic wall was in place. They didn't know how to set up a sonic wall. Oh, we got a VPN so we could connect into this server remotely. Oh yeah, I'll set up the VPN, right, and I'll manage it and I'll maintain it. Well, it's this much per hour for me to do these things, right? So those things start to go away, because now these service offerings are literally checkboxes, right? And it's just so easy to consume. Oh, you just hired another person? Go into this web console, check, put their email address in there. Bam, you just got all your accounts set up, right? Go. And so I think they've reduced their risk by the advent of these cloud-based services and these new service models that are starting to pop up.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's just a lot of them don't know that they exist. They don't know they exist until something has happened, right? Until they've been popped or something like that. It's the new companies that are standing up with the millennials that are taking more advantage of it. But the folks that are our age that are starting things, and medical practices and all of those different types of things, they don't necessarily always know. And I can tell you, I had a customer at one point that every day around 3 o'clock their systems would go down. They didn't understand why. Right? They were calling. They were, it happened again. Long story short, it was the cleaning lady unplugging it to plug in the vacuum.
Oh man. I wanted to ask one, because we asked this for everybody, and it's this concept of diminishing returns. Is there a point for let's go back to that small medium business where there's this point of diminishing returns with the amount of effort and time they're putting in for either an on-premise solution or something they don't know how to manage? And is that decision point or that inflection point then to flip to that service provider?
It is. At what point are the hours you're putting in to try and keep something running, put controls in place and protect it, are getting to the point of being overwhelming, either from a time perspective and from a cost perspective, right? So if you are paying consultants and paying third-party entities, and they're spending hours, or you're spending hours doing something that is overwhelming, you've got to figure out what that balance is. And there's always that inflection point that you're going to go through as an individual business to figure out what that is. It's not the same for everybody. It's something, when you do it and you begin to make that switch, you'll start to see and be like, and literally the first thing that'll probably pop to their mind is, why didn't I do this sooner? I've burned all of these hours. I've burned all of this capital. That tends to be something that a lot of them end up going through, especially as they grow, right? Because when you come out as a new entity, when you're starting something, fresh for the first time, you may not think about it. You may think, oh, I've got the capability, I've got the time, I've got the bandwidth to be able to do this myself, and I'm just going to do it. And then as you grow, you can't scale. And that's really where a lot of organizations find it, is that, okay, we can no longer scale with the 4 of us supporting this and doing this, and we need to figure out how we can scale faster and take this to the next level.
Oh, that's awesome. And Larry, I know we pulled you out of a conference, so thank you for taking some time, and we're going to let you get back to that Las Vegas heat, but thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
All good.
Thank you very much. I'm really appreciative of the time and these insights on the whole third party thing. It's just in the back of my mind constantly right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's in the back of a lot of our minds. So listen, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the platform. As you can tell, I love running my mouth. So anytime you guys want to do this again, please let me know, and I'm definitely open to it.
Thanks for listening to the latest podcast from Caffeinated Risk. Make sure you visit our website, caffeinatedrisk.com, to stay up to date on what we've been working on. Our website has bios of our podcast guests, posts about topics we're passionate about, and even a library of reference material we find valuable in the work we do every day. And don't forget to subscribe to Caffeinated Risk on your favorite podcast service. This way, you'll be notified when we release our next podcast, and you can listen to our previous guests just in case you missed them. Thanks so much for listening to Caffeinated Risk.